Obi-Wan is the most deceiving Jedi of them all. You're wondering, what am I talking about? Well, after this review, you'll know exactly what. Let's dive in. Hey YouTube, welcome to the Force Feed. I'm John, and today we're reviewing a book called The Cestus Deception. This was written by Stephen Barnes. This book takes place in 22 BBY, so still shortly after episode 2. If you're familiar with this channel, you'll notice that I usually do an overview of the book. I give my points of what I found interesting about the book, and then I give a little recap and a rating at the very end. I will now start splitting this into about 2 or 3 videos to try and break things up so people can really just get into the meat of what they want. But before I get into today's review, I just want to remind everybody that if you'd like to purchase this book before you watch this review, make sure to check in the description below. There will be a link to purchase the book, but just be aware that that is an Amazon link, and I am an Amazon affiliate. So if you use that link to purchase the book, it will benefit me or the channel in some way. But don't do it to benefit me. I appreciate it if you do. Do it so we can continue the conversation. There will also be links for the next 3 books that I'll be reading and reviewing on this channel. Now, the way the book starts out is there's a planet called Cestus, and there's a company on this planet called Cestus Cybernetics. It might be obvious right away that this is a company that makes robotics or droids of sorts. And there is one particular droid that they are interested in marketing called the JK droid. And when Obi-Wan is invited to a showing of this droid on what the capabilities of them are, he asked, what does JK mean? And it actually originally stood for Jedi Killer, which I don't know if they're still running with that code name, but they shortened it to JK droid. The interesting things about these droids that Obi-Wan also finds out pretty quickly is that they're kind of a mesh between biological and robotic. They're kind of bionic in a sorts, and they actually have force sensitivity. So interesting thing to include into a book. I can't remember if any of the other droids we've reviewed had force sensitivity. I know it's been a long debated topic. Can droids be force sensitive? Well, this book is Legends, so it's not canon, but this book is suggesting that there is a way to make them force sensitive. But we also know that the Empire has been trying to clone force sensitive people, and they're unsuccessful in that and whatnot. So who knows if that's ever something that could be introduced. But in any case, a very interesting concept to introduce into the books. Obi-Wan and Kit Fisto actually are invited to the showing to watch a demonstration of the JK droid in action. And they start with a Separatist droid, one of the droidicas, and then they go to a clone commando, and the droid actually dispatches of both of them pretty quickly. He doesn't kill the clone commando, but he does disable him and disarm him. There was some rumble in the crowd about, well, how would this droid fare against a Jedi? And Kit Fisto immediately decided he wanted to give it a shot, and the droid put up quite a fight against Kit Fisto. Eventually, Kit was able to gather himself and finish off the fight in his favor. Shortly after, Chancellor Palpatine actually told Obi-Wan and Kit Fisto that he wanted them to visit Cestus in order to talk about these droids, because Cestus was widely marketing these droids to be sold as in large orders, and they actually were talking to the Separatists about business dealings and selling them some of these droids, maybe to replace the old droid army. Chancellor Palpatine not only wanted them to not deal with the Separatists, but they wanted them to stop making the droids altogether, in the sense that he never wanted the Republic to have to face off against these droids, especially because they had the ability to overtake the clones, and that was something that Chancellor Palpatine, especially with his grand plans, thought is a very threatening thing. So he sent Obi-Wan and Kit Fisto to Cestus to try to get a sense of how their politics worked down there, to see if there was somebody they could talk to that would help encourage them in the right direction to stop the production of these droids. Obviously, Cestus Cybernetics and the regent Jimai Duras were, you might say, offended by the request, because this was their livelihood. This is the way that they made money. They have the Cybernetics Corp that helps fund the entire planet, basically. But also what Obi-Wan learned was that the planet is ruled by 5 families, and it's indirectly ruled by these 5 families, the elite of the planet. Jimai Duras, the regent, really has no power. She is basically told what to do by these 5 families, and all 5 families have a part in operating Cestus Cybernetics. So obviously they're very offended by the fact that Obi-Wan and Kit Fisto wanted them to stop their operation, and they also had Asajj Ventress in their ear telling them that the Republic is here to try to shut down your operation. They don't want you to succeed, and if you join the Separatists, we will let you continue with your operation however you please, and we will offer you protection as well. Well, it took a while for Obi-Wan to really narrow down down how the politics worked and the different players on Cestus. Due to the power hold of the five families, Obi-Wan was not very convincing, and he eventually had to resort to a very deceiving method of trying to convince them to stop their operation and comply with the Republic. You heard me say he's one of the most deceiving Jedi. Well, this was something that I thought was extremely out of character for him. He actually came up with sort of a play or an act that would involve Kit Fisto, because the people that Obi-Wan had met with had not met Kit Fisto yet. They were separated most of the time on the planet. Kit Fisto was working with the clones in case they had to militarily get involved, and Obi-Wan was working as the diplomat. So they had not seen Kit Fisto, and he led them on sort of a diversion. They were riding one of their train cars in kind of like a mineshaft type car, it seemed like, and it ended up going off rail into like an uncharted part of their pathway that hadn't been used in some time. It was some shut down part of the pathway. What happened was they brought Kit Fisto in to infiltrate that car, which had the five families in it. Obi-Wan was not there yet, but Kit Fisto came in and was acting as if he was a member of the Separatists to try to scare them into joining the Separatists. Well, Obi-Wan pretended he didn't know where the people were, and he tried to use the Force to find out where that car was and make his way over there. They had a little pretend fight with Kit Fisto to show them that Obi-Wan's there to fight for them, and then explain to them, look, the Separatists will stop at nothing to scare you into doing what they want, and this is how it'll be if you work with them. So that's why you need to sign this treaty with us to work with us and agree not to sell these droids to anybody else, especially the Separatists. Well, they find out about their little plan, and Asajj Ventress actually recorded them acting out this act that they put together, and they were rehearsing it somewhere that Asajj Ventress was able to record and pass around to the five families. All the while that Obi-Wan and Kit Fisto were there, Obi-Wan felt a non-presence while he was there, and it was Asajj Ventress using the Force to shield herself, to shield the dark side from Obi-Wan and Kit Fisto sensing where she was. So this whole time, Obi-Wan knows something is off, but he doesn't know what it is because it's something he can't sense. So he's wondering where that nothing is. And finally, when Obi-Wan and Kit Fisto are finally banished from the planet because of them deceiving the five families and the Regent, they tried to leave. Obi-Wan decided to come back because he wanted to work to convince them again, but he realized now he's going to have to get militarily involved. And the other reason was that the Chancellor found out that the talks broke down, so that he ordered a bombing to take place on the planet, and Obi-Wan wanted to try to fix things before that happened as well. Chancellor figured, well, if they're not going to agree with us, and if they're going to potentially side with the Separatists, we can't let that happen because we can't let them pass these droids around and be in a weakened position during the war. So Obi-Wan was able to escape his ship and took an escape pod back down to the planet. Him and Kit Fisto with the clones start attacking at different warehouses. One of them was an energy warehouse that shut down some of their energy sources, and one of them was a water treatment center, something like that, to shut down their water supply. They were trying to weaken them to get them to the table to explain to them what's going to happen if they don't work and get to an agreement. A bunch of things happen. They get into a situation where they're faced down by Asajj Ventress eventually, and they fight against her. She escapes. Neither Kit Fisto nor Obi-Wan was harmed, although there was a big fight that was put up. She tried to force these X-Ting. That's like what the original race of the Cestus planet was called, the X-Ting. They're insectoid species, and she tried to get several of them to fight Obi-Wan and Kit Fisto for her, and which created a ethical dilemma. Even though he just deceived the entire government into trying to sign the treaty with them, Obi-Wan thought, well, we can't just slaughter them, so let's not use our lightsabers because that's not fair. So they're trying to fight the X-Ting. They eventually make their way to Asajj Ventress, fight with the lightsaber, clash. She escapes. One of the clone troopers that you see mentioned a lot throughout the book, who you find out its name is Jango Tat, secretly orders a strike on the bomb shelter that the five families was hiding in, and which killed the five families. And the Regent, when she found that out, it was actually sort of a relieving thing because they had a stranglehold on the government there. Also, she was trying to work out why would Obi-Wan go to these lengths to try to get us to sign this treaty, and she had to try to see through the Separatist agenda. And once she finally saw through that, she talked to Obi-Wan, they worked it out, and the treaty was signed, and all is well after that. Thanks for watching today's video. Make sure to catch the next video where I give you my interesting things about this book. Thanks very much. Have a great day.